Police in the paddock on the eve of a race weekend starting, an F1 team not allowed to transport its cars to the next race, and a hurried multi-million-dollar payment to make it all go away. Yep, we've definitely had F1's weirdest controversy of 2024. Justified legal action from former title sponsor Uralkali meant Haas had an unexpectedly dramatic and stressful Dutch Grand Prix off-track, which began when bailiffs turned up at its garages on Thursday night to assess the value of its equipment, which could have been impounded. This didn't come to pass, and Haas was allowed to race at Zandvoort undisturbed, but it was then forced to keep everything at the track until much later than planned, with all its race equipment, including the two cars, staying deep into Monday. That has slightly compromised its Italian Grand Prix preparations, but Haas at least escaped in time to get to Monza and set up before the on-track action begins. If it had dragged on any longer, then Haas would be looking at serious competitive consequences, but even like this, it was still an embarrassing ordeal and a black eye for the team. So what the hell happened for it to have gone so far, and was Haas the victim or totally to blame? The legal action in the Netherlands was the culmination of 2 months of frustration on Uralkali's side. After failing to receive a repayment of money it had paid to the team before its title sponsorship was terminated by Haas in early 2022. Uralkali was Haas's main backer in 2021, back when Nikita Mazepin drove for the team and the Russian potash fertilizer producer and exporter was controlled by his father, Dmitry. But Haas cancelled the deal and dropped Mazepin on the eve of the 2022 season following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, owing to Mazepin Sr.'s ties to Vladimir Putin. Kevin Magnussen was rehired at the last minute, and without all of that, Haas would not have had such a successful 2022. Unsurprisingly though, Mazepin and Uralkali were not happy, and while the younger Mazepin hasn't been able to rebuild a top-line racing career yet, his sponsor took action to reclaim money it felt Haas owed it by ending the deal prematurely. The action resulted in arbitration in Switzerland, which amusingly both Haas and Uralkali claimed as a victory, and the exact ruling hasn't been made public, so we can't say for sure who's right. Uralkali claimed the tribunal found Haas was in violation of the contract, obliged it to pay compensation, and rejected all of the team's counterclaims. But Haas said that the panel ruled it had just cause to terminate its sponsorship contract and wasn't in breach of contract because of the various relationships at play, including Uralkali's association with Russia and President Putin. According to Haas, the panel emphasised that multiple other sports organisations severed their ties with Russian companies immediately after the invasion of Ukraine, and that there was a risk that Haas could rapidly be the last non-Russian sport team continuing with a Russian name sponsor. In any case, we do know for sure that Haas was ordered to refund Uralkali a significant amount of money that had already been paid. It was allowed to keep what was relevant up until early March 2022, but had to repay the rest, believed to be just short of $10 million, and was told to deliver Uralkali a car from the 2021 season per the original sponsorship agreement. Uralkali said in its reaction to that original ruling in June that it anticipated Haas would fulfill its obligations without undue delay. In other words, pay up and pay up quickly. But Haas didn't. It was given a month to come up with the money, but missed that deadline by a mile. Officially, Haas blamed the complexity of a US-owned organisation repaying a Russian one, while sanctions remain imposed due to the ongoing conflict. Uralkali didn't accept that. In mid-July, it issued a statement claiming it had not received either the money or the car, and that communications to Haas had gone unanswered. Uralkali called it a flagrant violation of the tribunal's outcome, said it gave new meaning to the expression unsportsmanlike conduct, and warned any current or future Haas sponsor that this is the kind of treatment they could expect. It also promised to use all means provided under the law to see that the ruling is implemented, which takes us to what happened in Zandvoort. The company tasked a Dutch legal firm with taking action, and a court order was approved in mid-August to seize money and/or goods from Haas, which required waiting until the Dutch Grand Prix when the team and all its equipment would be in the country. Uralkali and its legal representatives didn't seek to disrupt Haas's participation at Zandvoort, where its cars competed and finished 11th and 18th. But police and bailiffs were present at the track on Thursday evening to assess the value of the goods on site. The legal action being enforced at a quieter time like this actually spared Haas further shame. It could have been a right song and dance if Uralkali wanted it to be one, but Uralkali didn't want to completely screw Haas over and twist the knife. It just wanted what it was owed, and okay, it was a bonus to embarrass Haas a little while it could. With a court order imposed, Haas was instructed that it would face serious consequences if it left the country after the completion of the weekend without repaying what was owed, which the team accepted and pledged to resolve as soon as it could. We understand that meant sending the money from Haas Automation in the US to the UK-based F1 team's company on the Friday, and then working with lawyers to establish how to then get that money to Uralkali. A second transfer was made on Friday too, but as of Sunday evening, the funds had not been received. Anyone who has tried to receive an international bank transfer will know the pain of waiting a while for money to clear. That meant while all the other teams packed up and hit the road overnight Sunday into Monday, Haas's trucks stayed put. It could have taken the risk that proof of sending the payment would have been sufficient in the eyes of the Dutch courts, but opted to play it safe. Early on Monday afternoon, much to the team's relief, Uralkali confirmed it had received payment in full, including interest and fees, and had collected the race car owed to it under the terms of the sponsorship agreement too. It therefore notified Dutch authorities that they could release Haas's assets from arrest, allowing Haas to hotfoot it out of Zandvoort and start the 700-odd mile drive to Monza. As we've hinted at a couple of times now, we fear this was a self-inflicted Haas debacle. While it would be easy to criticise Uralkali or go to the sanctions defence, the evidence is really not on Haas's side. When the Zandvoort drama was starting, Uralkali issued a fresh statement that disputed the validity of any argument that Haas should have any trouble sending the money. Uralkali claimed it had reached out to Haas's representatives with options about how to make payment and where to send the race car, without ever receiving a substantive answer. Supposedly, Haas claimed it never got the emails. As a side note, given this was Andretti's excuse for supposedly missing Formula One's communication about a crucial in-person meeting to discuss its prospective 2026 entry, we have to wonder if these companies need to sort out their spam filters. But back to Uralkali, it was adamant there are not now, and have never been, any sanctions issues preventing Haas from fulfilling its obligations. The company's Dutch legal representatives told us that this is because there was nothing binding preventing money being sent from continental Europe. Pedantically, we might point out that this may not be the case for Haas Automation in the US or even Haas Formula Racing Limited in the UK. But if there was any genuine hurdle here, Haas would not have resolved it as quickly as it did over the weekend. So we don't think Haas deserves any leeway. And when we say Haas, we're really saying Haas in the US, because the F1 team is collateral damage here. It wasn't responsible for this, it was just a very public target to force the money to finally be sent. And it worked. Once legal pressure was applied, Haas leapt into sorting an expedited solution. It went from being visited by police and bailiffs on the Thursday evening to making a payment less than 24 hours later, and after the weekend passed, that money being received. So repaying Uralkali was actually pretty easy, wasn't it? It really does suggest that the 2-month delay in paying was not simply the result of supposed complications around a US firm paying money to a Russian company owing to ongoing sanctions, as had been claimed. Which begs the question, what was Haas playing at? Frankly, it feels like Gene Haas and his cohorts simply not wanting to pay and refusing to. Either that, or they didn't think it was important. We're not sure which is more worrying, but it's unfortunately in keeping with Haas's attitude to his F1 team, which he almost seems to resent running properly. In the end, it was all resolved, and Gene might not care about this sort of thing, but he should. The Haas F1 team was made to look pretty stupid. It was embarrassed, and the US side should be embarrassed too. Plus, you have to wonder what current title sponsor MoneyGram and other partners made of all of this. Do not underestimate just how rare and how awful it is for there to be talk of impounded assets and massive sums of money going unpaid in F1. It cast Haas as the incompetent, unprofessional villain when it could have claimed the arbitration outcome as a victory and quietly drawn a line under an unfortunate, but for the most part necessary, legal process. Leave it to a billionaire to be needlessly difficult about paying money even if they're obligated to.